Well, look what we have here today. Another Pokemon video for you guys to enjoy. At least I hope so, because I gotta be honest here, compared to all the other ones that I've done in the past, this one may not be your favorite one. I gotta be honest. And it's not just any video either. This is about me talking about how modern Pokemon games are actually the most controversial thing in all Nintendo, and oh man, wow, who could have thought such a thing? It's not like I had plans to do this in the very beginning or something of the sort, since I'm running out of ideas and in desperate need for attention from the YouTube algorithm. Shut up, I need the money. Okay, now look you guys, with all intents and purposes, this video may already put some bit of an ego out there, but you can't deny that the current modern Pokemon games of today have been feeling rather unmagical as of recent, if you're catching my Veluza drift here. There's no denying that the discourse surrounding the new era of Pokemon has now been both good and tremendously bad, with all the evidence being pointed at the idea that Game Freak now more than ever doesn't give a... Okay wait, are we past 15 seconds by the way? Wait a second. Okay, now give a flying fuck about this franchise. Or that it's the fault of Pokemon Company not giving away their millions in revenues from other means of promoting the franchise to Game Freak in order to produce higher quality games, given that nowadays Pokemon is practically all over the place. God damn, Pikachu be making more money than me, you hate to see it. So with that in mind, what exactly am I getting at with this video then? Well, for starters, since you guys love to take other people's words out of context in the bunch, this really is just a reflection of the current state of Pokemon, a means to collectively find all the evidence I can muster and squeeze all that shit into this video here to show what the hell is really going on with Pokemon right now, and how we hope to see what's to come in down the line. This isn't a means to criticize Game Freak, nor am I really praising what it's been doing in terms of recent entries, spin-offs, and all that other kinds of crap. Also, where's my new all-original mystery dungeon game, Pokemon Company? Huh? Where is it? And to bring about a point of reference for this topic, I will only be condensing this so-called Controversies timeline from 2017 onwards, since I feel like for the past 6-ish years or so, there has been quite a lot that I can say is enough to present the case of whatever is happening with Pokemon at this very moment. So this means I'm covering from Pokemon Let's Go to now Scarlet and Violet, while briefly mentioning the side games such as new Pokemon Snap, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX, Pokken Tournament DX, Master EX, and Pokemon Unite. Man, this game. Just gonna say this now, boost this video up, get me to 5k subs on YouTube, and I will blow a casket on that mobile monstrosity. I got a script for it ready to go. I am willing to go hard on what I consider one of the worst spin-off games I've seen in a Pokemon game to date. Now, with that baseline said, I think what's important to discuss first and foremost is what exactly is the controversy being in place with modern Pokemon games. After all, if you were to take a look from afar, and I mean like distancing yourself from the horrendous pits of the Pokemon community by asking for a restraining order, surprisingly you'll realize that the current games of today aren't all that bad. Hell, I would argue that from a mere logistical standpoint that Pokemon has always provided fun experiences as they did back during the handheld days with the Game Boy, DS, and 3DS eras. The content of catching, training, and battling is all there, and say what we will about story, that is all really all that minor in the fine line of things of just enjoying the game at its most baseline. No, at its most baseline. These games with this mentality isn't all that inherently bad to look into and spend a good solid $60, because at the end of the day, this Pokemon really needs to have a mature and dark storyline with edgy atmosphere that even the Batman series would say is a bit too much, because if that's the case, then by all means go play a Persona or Shin Megami Tensei game, since that's more up your alley than Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Still, this is where the controversy starts to take root, because while you have this casual experience of wanting to play Pokemon for what it is, you also have the other side of the coin where they realize Pokemon deserves much more love and attention to the IP than ever before. This type of Pokemon fan is where I slightly align myself with, because I understand the need for modern Pokemon games to be better, but at the same time I know I will enjoy myself regardless if the game has a few bugs in it or not. Why, yes, I am a hypocrite. Oh, okay, that was a little hot. From here is where we can cross-reference this notion with the very games themselves, them being a sort of a byproduct by the reactions of the casual Pokemon fan and the diehard Pokemon fan. With Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee specifically, you see the sort of intersection between the two in terms of what Game Freak wanted to present and ultimately gave as a result, which was basically another, yes, another Kanto adventure, but with slightly better graphics and quality of life features that they learned from the previous games. This in turn allowed this very first Pokemon Switch game to breathe rather well. Despite the complaints of it being way too easy, the graphics being ridiculously oversaturated, the map design being almost one-to-one from its red and blue counterpart, or not so much as fire red and leaf green one, and the atrocious catching elements thanks to Pokemon Go releasing a year before this crap being all too prevalent in the conversation for it back in the day. Yet at the end of the day though, Pokemon Let's Go still felt rather satisfying, something that still felt right at home for every Pokemon fan, since it was a nice departure from the 3DS era while still retaining the qualities of that era particularly. Despite that though, it did feel like there were some things missing out and needed a new and more original approach. And thus, Pokemon Sword and Shield was born. And there goes my will to live. Okay, but in hindsight, we all understand what Pokemon Sword and Shield were initially delivering, and that was of course a brand new generation of Pokemon being officially part of the Nintendo Switch family, marking the official era of the Switch Pokemon games. Keeping this in mind, you wouldn't be surprised to hear me say that the reception for this game was through the roof when it was teased, shown, and of course released, regardless of what we have to say about the game today, almost 4 years later. But since we are talking about the modern Pokemon controversy here, you cannot expect me to repeatedly mention ad nauseum the countless of errors this particular generation had, starting with its presentation. Like straight out the gate, it was not surprising to see the amount of hate Sword and Shield got in terms of its graphics, especially when you consider that prior to this game's release, the Switch was loaded with really great games that had high graphical fidelity. Games like Breath of the Wild, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Link's Awakening, Astral Chain, and Super Mario Odyssey easily come into mind with this take, because how was it that Game Freak and Pokemon Company greenlit such a lackluster entry to the franchise that was considered to be the official next-gen Pokemon games on the Nintendo Switch, when at the end of the day, these guys exist day one. And regardless of the Switch's capabilities or not, Game Freak just could have easily done us a solid, especially when there was the whole Nintendo 64 tree debate that's still going on even today after almost 4 years. That shit alone is enough to indicate just how nitpicky Pokemon fans were being at the time. Well, they still are being nitpicky pricks, just now with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet this time, and the less I talk about its Play-Doh environmental designs, the better. But see, that's what I mean already by what the modern Pokemon controversy is really all about. From a mere graphical design standpoint, there will be many that are willing to defend the graphical fidelity of these current Pokemon games, to the point where even to state the claim of nitpicking for outdated assets or graphics not being up to snuff for what a proper Switch title should look like just doesn't faze them at all when it comes down to actually experiencing what these games offer. To these fans, graphics are going to be secondary as long as the game plays and feels like a Pokemon game at the end of the day, which is honestly absolutely fine when you sit down and think about it for a good second. As for me personally, I feel like this is a notion I kind of have better vibes with, because at the end of the day, Pokemon doesn't necessarily need good graphics. Like, yes, it should have. I get that graphics always sort of provide a good, I guess, quality to a game, all that kind of stuff. I totally get it. But with Pokemon here, at the end of the day, what matters about these games is the content that it has aside from all that kind of stuff. Which now leads us to the second modern Pokemon controversy here, the content that these games possess, which, oh boy. Now, the Switch era particularly isn't at fault with the amount of Pokemon content it has presented throughout the course of its existence. Going back to what I said earlier with a mention of the side games, I would argue that modern Pokemon thrived tremendously well with the help of the Nintendo Switch. Pokemon never felt like it had a major presence that it seemingly does now with the Switch, and because of that, it has a rather rewarding feeling, ironically. I mean, with 5 mainline games, as well as a return of a fan favorite having a sequel by the name of New Pokemon Snap, a remake of the first Mystery Dungeon game being Rescue Team DX, Pokken coming back with a definitive edition and all new content to explore, and of course the live service MOBA trash that is Pokemon Unite, Pokemon Company, now than ever, has a massive stronghold with this damn console. Like, that's a fact. Yet the content itself is what ended up pissing off a lot of people off during the Switch era, because deliverance also wasn't up to snuff. Besides the whole bug and glitch as we already saw with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, the Gen 4 remakes, Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, also didn't feel as rewarding, because at the end of the day it was just an HD repeat of the original DS games without having so much of the Platinum content in place. Although I did enjoy and even defended these games before its release, I'll be honest here, it just didn't feel right at the end, and that's really saying a lot. Then of course there was a whole debacle with Pokemon Sword and Shield and how an expansion pass of all things did alleviate things in terms of its lackluster post game, but it still didn't feel enough. And then with Legends here, while literally being the best of the Switch era thus far, it can only do so much to be enjoyable until you end up having Pokemon post-game syndrome, and then you just won't touch the damn thing for a good few months. The same goes with new Pokemon Snap and Mystery Dungeon DX, because they can only carry the franchise for so damn long. And to touch base back on Sword and Shield, don't even get me started with the whole National Dex controversy that went on in and of itself. The whole hashtag bring back National Dex or hashtag Dexit or the whole National Dex controversy and things like that. Like, aside from the N64 tree, that alone is just complete dumbassery and just a bunch of dumbasses just being dumbasses simply because, oh, my favorite Pokemon just didn't end up being in the initial roster, which, by the way, it's most likely is now the expansion pass. But talk about a total buzzkill for a mediocre game that I completely understand in hindsight, but back then was the hype. Like, that was hype fest galore. And then of course, like I already mentioned, there's a horror show that's Pokemon Unite that, sure, it's going strong today with more Pokemon and content to do and explore. That's amazing. But this mobile live service game can only go so far towards being an enjoyable experience and then being, why the f is even a thing? Like, seriously, Pokemon Unite is just a trash of a game as is. Like, it doesn't need to exist, we can all acknowledge that. And also, where the hell is my Legends DLC, Game Freak? Like, come the f on! Man, I don't normally drop so many F-bombs in a video, but my point feels like it's being made here, as do many people out there in the Pokemon community. Pokemon just doesn't feel like it's really innovating like it used to. And I know that's hard to admit that, but man, does it feel hard to accept that as well. But Pokemon now more than ever is at a place where it just needs to slightly shift itself and improve a little bit more moving forward. Legends was a perfect step to climb, and then Pokemon Scarlet and Violet just needed to keep climbing those steps further, but goddamn does this narrative feel tiring every single time. It just sucks to play this record on repeat, and I understand the sentiment started way back with the 3DS era, going back to Pokemon X and Y when they initially released back in 2013, and how even today there's still a camp in the community that says Pokemon never transitioned well into 3D, and as a Sonic fan, I chuckle at that opinion every damn time. But since we're way past that now, it just feels frustrating to see what the reality is with the franchise today, because man, does this need changing anytime soon. But I think to at least end things off in a nicer tone, I'm going to try and keep a more positive and optimistic mind with the Pokemon franchise here, and I guess the best way to do that isn't just to acknowledge the situation that goes on with modern Pokemon games today, but also go back to its past, to go and revisit what was considered the best generations of their time, and just to see how Pokemon evolved throughout the course. And for those that have been waiting for so long, yes, I do have plans to go back to Legends. I want to do a 1-year retrospective review on that sometime soon. It's probably in the works by the time this video is already out there on YouTube and the bunch. But besides that, I also want to talk about Generation 2, because I teased that shit all the way back when I did Generation 1, and I love the support you guys gave for that video, hint, and I'm just maybe thinking of going back to that. So who knows, throw as much support as you can on this video and all the other videos, and maybe I'll decide on putting those videos on like full blast to get them out there, but just throwing that out there. As always, thank you guys so much for the support, especially if you are new. Love you all to 120 as always. Stay safe and sexy out there. Do good into the world. Be awesome, because I know you guys can. And I'll see you all with that next one. Alright, peace out. Take care. And man, talk about throwing hands with the Pokemon community. I did that once. In fact, I did that a couple of times. But now this one, ooh, I'm really about to reap those rewards.